As the moment of warping out closes in, we are still calmly placing some gun turrets, now actually on the mining platform, so they will be nicely prepared for the next warp zone. And as we warp out, we get yet another new message. A heavy aroma of grease and machinery suddenly wafts over the platform, and you wonder if you have been here before. That doesn't sound good. So we pop our head outside to see what's going on. That's just great. This planet is already pre-polluted, which means our rights to have a moment of peace and quiet in the beginning of a new warp zone are voided. It's immediate large biter streams from the get-go on this planet. Fortunately, it will still be small biters only for a while. And we now have 4 new access points to our base, which, thank the great engineer in the sky, the biters cannot use. With all high priority military techs completed, we can now get rid of our temporary military sign setup, and once just a couple more red-green techs are done as well, in this warp zone we are gonna get rid of our entire base and build a new factory from scratch. After a quick resource inventarization, we learn that after filling the entire sign setup to the brim, we still have tons of iron and copper to spare. So indeed, we won't be mining more iron or copper. We are off to get a new kind of resource. Oil. But it's not gonna be all that easy to find some. Not only do we first need to try to escape our pre-polluted spawn point, but also, this is a so-called polluted planet. Warptorio normally doesn't throw those at you until after Warp Zone 40. You see, besides the obvious already polluted state of the planet upon our arrival, there are some other traits to this planet, which makes it much harder to succeed in this Warp Zone. Not only do all resources spawn at only 75% frequency, size and richness, which makes them harder to find and to utilize, there still is one resource that is nearly twice as abundant and twice as large as usual: biter bases. That means not only is this planet much harder to navigate due to all the biter bases, and additionally huge forests in this specific case, it also greatly increases the chance that any resource we do find is gonna be inaccessible due to biter bases having spawned on top of them. Let's see how long it will take to find... Oh, and of course he finds the oil he's looking for almost immediately, with no biter base in sight. Anyway, let's ignore the stroke of suspiciously good RNG and set up the pump jacks so we can start collecting oil. But where exactly are you gonna store all that oil? And how are you gonna bring it home in the first place? Well, with our mining platform, of course. We're gonna mine the oil straight out of the ground with our electric ore miners, and of course you could use those warp pipe connections instead. That would work too, I guess. But that still doesn't solve the question of where to physically store the oil, so let's check out the great blueprint book once again. Did you know that you can use this neat little trick to place specific parts of a blueprint by force placing the blueprint, copy paste the part you want, Ctrl Z to undo the blueprint, and then paste back the part you want to have. You won't have to bother with this obscure trick though, as in my public blueprint book, which you can find on Discord, link in description, I added an extra blueprint containing just the oil tanks and connections. Anyway, let's power up those pump jacks and get that sweet crude oil flowing into our base. WARPTORIO really likes to throw curveballs at you, or at least curved floors, which leads to probably one of the strangest storage tank shapes you've seen so far, trying to make the most out of the curved wall of the harvester floor. Well, with all this highly flammable oil stored around here, we will have to enforce a strict no cigar smoking policy in this Oval Office. Anyway, we're about to get another curveball thrown into our face, as we are researching Warp Platform Stairs Energy Upgrade, one of the warp technologies that messes with the characteristics of the different floors and teleporters in WARPTORIO. And completing technologies related to those can have some unforeseen side effects. Like your entire warp platform just warping back to the base, leaving you stranded. Fortunately, I had foreseen this, so let's draw the other mining platform out of our pocket and... oh, this teleporter doesn't work anymore either. Let's pick it up and throw it on the ground as hard as we can. And voila! If you cannot fix the problem with a hammer, what you need is a bigger hammer. Anyway, we can now use our harvester floor wormhole to go re-pick up the west harvester. Then escape back out through our east harvester, so we can go place the west harvester back where it belongs on the oil field. So yeah, be careful of the timing on when you complete any WARPTORIO specific technology that updates specifications on the different floors and teleporters. And that means it's gonna happen again once the current upgrade 3 technology completes, so let's not stray away too far just yet. Anyway, researching those warp platform stairs energy upgrades increases the maximum energy capacity and maximum energy flow rate between the different factory floors. So at first glance, the effects seem purely positive with no downsides. This is not the case, however, and researching these technologies is a severe mistake, for reasons I'll explain later. For now, we make it back to the oil fields in time to pick up the platform before it teleports away, and upon completing the technology, we can safely put back the platform in its place, and head out to find the other resource we need: coal. Now, let's hope I didn't miss something crucial. So let's draw the other mining platform out of our pocket and... oh. With all of those shenanigans out of the way, it is finally time to start thinking about our second mining platform. We are in need of coal for our furnaces and boilers, and despite being 12 minutes in on this warp zone already, we haven't even begun searching for a coal patch. And this time, we are not gonna be so lucky in finding the exact resource we need whenever we want it. On the contrary, it's gonna be quite the epic adventure to find it, so strap in. We sneakily sneak around biter bases, but still find the open road blockaded by dense forests. All the while the great engineer in the sky successfully distracts us with lots of low-level loot boxes, costing us precious time for dubious benefits. When we try to traverse through the Darien Gap into the south, we find ourselves ambushed by a lone medium worm. Hooch! It's not easy to avoid his dangerous asset amidst the dense trees. Nevertheless, we emerge victorious on the south side. And having learned our lesson, we start to ignore all the loot chests with less than stellar loot. Unfortunately, the south side is blocked off almost completely. So we have no choice but to venture back through the same jungle again to explore the northwest side. The extra dense biter bases on the polluted worlds quickly make sneaking through impossible if you stray too far away from spawn. In addition to the bountiful biter bases, the anomalous amount of fierce forests and large lakes further bestows our quest for coal with difficulty. We drive and drive and drive, exploring any chunk where a small coal patch could be hiding, but we find nothing. Until, finally, we find a pretty large coal patch. Right under an even larger biter nest. Unfortunately, there is no way we can use this patch with those biters so close by, but we recently acquired one new advantage. And it's not that shooting speed technology. It is the not insignificant fact that, as of recently, our mining platforms now come with integrated gun turrets. Oof. Hopefully, with the nearest biter bases now gone, the gun turrets won't cause an infinite trickle of bullet-draining biter attacks on the coal mine. Oh right, and of course we cannot use the teleporter after that recent tech upgrade. We need to pick it up and place it back one more time. Anyway, that concludes our outside adventures for now. Let's go inside and complete the other side of our oil storage tankers. Oh, and split this coal to both sides for no real reason, I guess. Now the time has come. This base has gotten us all of the upgrades we could possibly unlock at this stage of the game. And the factory floors have grown tremendously since we first installed this red and green science base. It is time for this base to go and make space for a new, fully automated base which can get us through the entire tech tree and somehow before the next warp zone ends. 2 months later. Alright, that whole base reconstruction thing will have to wait just a little longer. I had recorded ahead until this save point around Christmas, and after finally picking it up today in late February again, some things have changed. Most importantly, after some updating, WARPTORIO has reset all warp pipe orientations to their default state, which means the oil pump jacks are no longer connected to my oil reservoir, so we'll have to go out and fix that pronto. But not through this teleporter. Apparently that part has not been reset to its default state. So out we go through the other one, which fortunately still works, and we make the overworld journey to the broken teleporter. Well, It's not like we're on a timed run, where I promised the game would be finished in Warpzone 8 or anything. Fortunately, we are still just below the appearance of medium biters, so we can still afford to trigger them. Though this might be pushing it a bit. Anyway, we arrive on the scene and fix the disconnected warp pipe. Fortunately, production has not been interrupted. Somehow I put those oil tanks there on a whim. I mean, thanks to my great foresight. We still cannot actually use the teleporter, so we'll have to pick it up and throw down the platform once more. Twice more, for us to be able to use it again. Okay, normality restored. I don't know how much time I wasted, but let's hope it didn't cost me the run. Well, I should have been researching while we were away, but okay I guess. Since we're about to deconstruct the base, let's get 2 more upgrades to our deconstruction speed. And finally, concrete, the last important prerequisite technology for our upcoming goal. Ideally, these assemblers will consume all of their remaining plates while I prepare my stuff to build the new base. But Green Science is a bit behind due to its slower crafting speed. So, let's tag on a few extra Green Science assemblers in this recently obtained extra space at the top here. Nice. Now we are gonna need tons of materials to build a new base, and I barely have anything on me. So we're gonna use these temporary assemblers to make all sorts of intermediates to help us speedcraft everything we need for the new base. Iron gears and copper wire is always a good start, and whoa! That is exactly why I've had that pipe border in the south, so let's throw down one on the north side too. While the first batch is crafting, let's grab the military science blueprint from my new blueprint book. The blue science blueprint will fit right on top later, but for now the mouse over shows us all the building blocks we need to fully build up this blueprint, so we can handcraft all the elements we need one by one. First up is close to 100 medium power poles, which is one of the few recipes in Factorio which requires iron sticks. So, let's switch some assemblers over from iron gears to iron sticks. The assembler will switch seamlessly and continue crafting iron sticks from the iron we put in for the gears. And that's already enough for 99 power poles. Nice, let's do the rest in a quick montage. Well, research has meanwhile been completed, and the science ingredient chests are almost empty. I think we can start the dismantling of the entire factory floor. And that's a clean empty sheet for us to build our new factory on. Nice. Let's stamp down the first phase of the blueprint, containing the labs, red, green and military signs, as well as getting an early start on engine production. Now, two technologies which I did not explicitly mention were Warp Platform Logistics 2 and the dual loader. So meanwhile we have got 4 red belts going up and down each floor instead of the 2 yellow belts we had before. Those were the last requirements to unlock for the new base after upgrading all the floor sizes. Anyway, let's prioritize putting in place the power poles. Nice! To start off, we want to get the steel, iron and copper to the factory floor. So let's feed out the leftovers. And we see them appear in this chest. Or you know, that chest. Whatever floats your boat. Anyway, we first combine copper and iron on a single belt to rebuild the red and green signs ingredients in the north corridor. There are some buffer chests for gears and circuits, but as we want signs to have priority, some simple wire conditions switch off the inserters for those buffer chests unless we have plenty of green signs ingredients stocked up. Red signs is easy. We just draw some copper off the belt with a filter inserter, join it up with an adjacent iron gear assembler and Bob's Mods your auntie. Belts and inserters for green signs and personal use are stored in these 2 chests. So once we start placing the assemblers, everything should switch on one after the other. That's belts and that's inserters, with 2 copper wire assemblers for the green chips this time. And so the chaos ensues. Some hate it, some love it. But in WARPTORIO you'd better love it. I'm talking about the infamous belt weaving technique, which opens up a portal to the 4th dimension, as suddenly the yellow and red belts can both exist in the same horizontal plane without getting in each other's way. Nice. Since WARPTORIO has wildly different research speeds and requirements, we use some science pack buffer chests to keep producing signs at a steady pace when demand is low and feed out extra signs from the chests when demand is high. To avoid having to build the labs 1 tile off-center, we decided against belt weaving for the lab area, opting for a symmetric 3 belts down the middle setup so we can see the science packs go brrrr on the belts. And we have just about enough science packs left over from our old base to completely fill up the 1000 science pack buffer chests. Nice. Now that we have some signs, let's build the lab setup. With 3 inserters per lab all reaching a different belt, we should be good until yellow and purple signs, and we'll weave space signs in there somehow when the time comes. Also, keep a good eye out, because you may recognize this 3 belts down the middle setup in a few more locations in this base. So I will go through the inner workings of these blueprints in this series, but if you like to see the process of me actually designing a blueprint like this, check out my Nuclear Warptorio stream over on my live channel or on Twitch. I'll link the timestamp I start the design process down below. Back to blueprinting, Mike. Nice. On to military signs. To keep up with 5 red, 6 green and 12 blue signs assemblers, we would need 5 military signs assemblers, plus an extra assembler each for grenades and red ammo. Instead, we build it a little smaller, as military signs is only required for, well, military technologies, whereas red, green and blue signs are standard ingredients for all technologies. So we will just rely on slow but steady production in the off times, while feeding out extra military sign spec from the buffer chest when we actually are researching a military technology. These 4 chests actually are our coal supply chests, so let's go get some in the basement. Until we can actually use our above ground platform in the far future, we will have to supply coal here ourselves. Fortunately, coal is only used in grenades and in plastics, so hopefully we won't need to refill these too often. Now, I could have put iron and coal on a shared belt, but I want to split the iron evenly between yellow ammo and grenades. I will have a buffer chest of both, and in case of iron shortage, I don't want, say, yellow ammo to be taking all the iron, filling up a large buffer chest, while grenades and thus military signs is being starved, possibly grinding the entire base to a halt. Properly granting access to limited iron to each product individually should at least keep us inching forwards in times of need. And this is where our tens of thousands of stone bricks we stashed away last warp zone are going to come into play. We will need them to automate the walls for military signs, until we have an actual stone supply. We have been cooking a weird soup of buffer chests, supply chests and inserter vermicelli to distribute everything to where it needs to go. But somehow it all works out, and the first automated military signs is being created. Now we just need to connect it to the labs. One downside of this blueprint is we don't have space for a physical barrier around the dangerous warp teleporter anymore. So we're going to have to be very careful to not accidentally warp outside. For that purpose, I use as many underground belts as possible around the teleporters, as underground belts don't push you around like regular belts and splitters do. That way, we can hopefully keep control of our precise movements and avoid any accidental deadly warp outs. Finally, we connect copper and steel to red ammo, and that's military signs fully automated. Nice. And blue signs will connect through this underground belt to this buffer chest here. We still have 12 minutes to go before warp time, so let's continue on the engines. 8 engine assemblers again is 2 assemblers short for 12 blue signs assemblers, so we want to get a head start on engine production, so it can run while we set up the whole oil industry required for the other 2/3 of blue signs ingredients. Meanwhile, I am actively avoiding talking about this mess of multi-directional underground belt weaving. If you want to know exactly which underground belt points to where, get a hold of my blueprint book through Discord. Anyway, almost most of the engines will go through this buffer chest on a belt to blue signs, where it will meet up with the sulfur for blue signs. There is no copper involved in making engines, they are pure iron and steel. So those will come in on the northern belt here, after which the iron is transformed into pipes and gears to make engines. The handy dandy pipe buffer chest will be of great help once we need to set up the whole advanced oil industry, including oil cracking, but since we're low on iron, let's tone down the buffers a bit. Later, under the influence of the future warp beacon's stacked productivity bonus, 8 engine assemblers will be plenty to supply both blue signs and electric engines for bot frames for yellow signs. After iron and steel are connected, we see that also the engine setup somehow is working despite the absolute mess of underground belts. Well, that's the advantage of designing a blueprint beforehand and testing it extensively. Then everything just works. Anyway, the next technology we are aiming for is the next 10-minute increment to the warp timer. It requires blue signs, so we still cannot research it. Warp reactor level 6, however, requires a whopping 500 military science packs to complete. So while we build up to blue signs, our slow military science production can chip away at filling the military science buffer chest, and hopefully we'll have stockpiled enough once the time comes to research that technology. Well, it's still not time to warp out just yet, but evolution has passed into big biters a while ago already. So let's go check if everything still works and is properly defended. We have amassed over 400k oil already, which should be more than enough to reach our immediate goals in the final warp zone, which we will enter in less than 10 minutes. It doesn't quite seem like we are near the end stages of the game though, so how that's all gonna work out will be an interesting problem to explore. At the copper/oil miner, all the pump jacks indeed are still active, but as the warp platform's pollution cloud starts to engulf the oil outpost under its influence, attacks will start rampanting up rapidly from now on and will include more and more of the dangerous big biters. As an example, let's draw this single specimen towards the soothing sound of our gun turrets. Oof, that is a lot of bullets and a long time to kill just a single one. Also at the coal mine we find a suspiciously large blue-looking body. And while investigating, I trigger the whole nest with my proximity. Oof! Fortunately, no further blue specimens were included in that attack. Anyway, everything still seems somewhat semi-stable outside, so step inside we shall. We have used up only a quarter of our water and still have 1.5 million units remaining. And now we have a matching coal stack to go with it. Yeah, let's restore this coal splitter monstrosity. I guess I wanted to make use of the 4 doubled iron chests for extra coal storage, but we won't even be able to fill up all the steel coal chests in the basement, despite mining coal all warp zone long. Well, we still have over 7 minutes to warp, so let's start building some more base. This is our future yellow and purple science area, which until then we can use for personal crafting. And these green chips are gonna supply our red chips, and we'll use large buffer chests to make many modules, and supply our first future blue chips as well. For some reason I'm sideloading the green chip output belt after just 2 green chip assemblers. Mate, those are never gonna be able to fill up half a belt by themselves. Or are they? That's the iron connected, and these 2 copper wire assemblers will belt out copper wire directly to red chips. We won't start buffering green chips just yet, but that's the green chip belt going down. copper wire is going down here, and red chips are gonna come up here, where through many underground belts they'll reach blue signs as well. Now we just need to connect copper, which comes out on a red belt initially because low density structures exist, but the branch to reds and greens can be yellow if you can still follow my color scheme. I couldn't, I had to record this line 15 effing times. A weird squiggle brings the copper down and back up to supply everything. And right as our gun turrets and even a miner is getting damaged in an attack, that is green chips automated. With the biter's power level growing over 9000, perhaps we shouldn't try to squeeze the last little bit of production out of this planet by leaving our mining outposts outside until the very last moment, but I cannot help myself. We continue building out the second half of the engines, which is less scarce than the top half, but only slightly. And then start on the 12 blue signs assembler setup. Which indeed looks suspiciously similar to our lab setup. Same power pole patterns and inserter arrays, except for that the middle belt is the signs output belt instead of another input. These compact setups take quite a while to build with all those precise placements of different elements, so I am glad we can get a lot of the blue signs built out of the way in this warp zone already. That will make sure I'm easily gonna achieve my direct goals next warp zone. Unless, of course, me being a couple minutes ahead of schedule is going to make me way too overconfident next warp zone and lead me to follow a useless but time-draining strategy, which I explicitly had forbidden myself from following in my notes. Well, I'm sure that won't happen next time.